Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Varen. Let's talk about astrology. And for this first video of this new series on my channel, I want to talk to you about the 3 things that I do in my spiritual personal growth practice and planning that are astrology based. What they are and what I do with them and why. So this is a new video series I'm planning to do because I want to do more astrology. I want to talk about it more. I want to do more astrology work because I am a professional astrologer. I am tired of fighting myself on the fact that astrology is really quite central to everything in my life. So I'm just leaning in. If you like the sounds of that, you can check out my description box and check out my website. You can also leave a comment about astrology topics. If there's an astrology topic that you've been wanting to hear about, let me know in the comments down below. And for starters, I thought it would be good to come and talk about, I've solidified recently that there are 3 things, there are 3 cornerstones or 3 pillars of my practice, my practice with tarot, my practice with my journal, my practice with personal and spiritual development and growth work, shadow work, healing work. There are 3 pillars that I use, and they're all based on astrology cycles. So I want to talk about them. The first one is the sun cycle. I work with the sun cycle. And an important thing to keep in mind as you're watching this is please remember, or if you don't know, when humans created the Gregorian calendar, which is the calendar we used, so far as I know, at least 2 things to create it. 1, astronomy, and number 2, astrology. Astrology has been around longer than the Gregorian calendar. And because it was used to create the Gregorian calendar, there are overlaps. However, things have kind of shifted. And I don't know, of course, all the details of how they created the calendar because I don't care enough to look all that up. Anywho, the sun cycle is, it's a year-long cycle. It takes 1 year for the sun to go through all the signs, which is why like it lines up a lot with our calendar year. It's 1 year. The sun is in each sign for about 30 days, just like most of our months. So there's a lot of this that went into the Gregorian calendar specifically. And the sun in astrology is our luminary. It lights the way. We very much live by the sun. That's why in the winter, when it's all gray and shit, no one wants to fucking do anything because it's gray and there's very little sunlight. So we live by the sun. And the sun in astrology represents our conscious mind, will, our personality, our will to live, our creative force. We are guided all the time by the sun. And a lot of our worlds, and has been for a long time, even before the calendars, was built around living by the sun because it's light and we're not nocturnal as a species, right? So I use the sun for planning, for goal setting. This was an idea that came to me at the beginning or at the end of 2021 and that I started last year, and I did it all last year and I love it. It's the idea of, like I said, it's goal planning because so in astrology, you have approximately 30 days of each cycle. The sun spends roughly 30 months in each sign. And in whole sign astrology, which is what I practice, I did do a video about how you can generate your whole sign chart. You can find it linked up above in the cards. A whole sign, in whole sign, you have one house which lines up with one sign. I did this to represent like the pie shape. It lines up like a pie slice. So for me, Aries is my 10th house. And the houses are like a different area of life. So every roughly 30 days, it's not on the month, but every roughly 30 days, the sun approaches and enters a new sign, and it lights up that house, and it's bringing your attention to your creative force, because the sun represents your creative force. When the sun moves through the sky, because it rules our conscious mind, our creative force, our will, it's bringing your attention to those topics and how they relate to each area of your life. So it's bringing your will, it's bringing your creative force, it's bringing your conscious mind in alignment with that area of your life based on your whole sign chart, right? So we're about to do Aries, or we're in Pisces season. That's my 9th house of spirit and study. So right now the sun is bringing my attention to my will, my creative force, and what's on my conscious mind about my spiritual life, about the things I want to study, about those kinds of topics. So when the sun enters those times, I want a goal plan. I want to consciously spend time looking at the area of my life that the sun is going to have me focusing on. Because if you think about it and you really observe, you'll notice you're doing it without trying for the most part. Like when you know and understand astrology and then you look and observe it, you find so many patterns in your life of like, oh shit, that's why I tend to, like, every March, which is mostly Aries season, I tend to think about these things either way. Like you'll notice it lines up. It's kind of scary accurate. It's really quite cool. So I use the sun to plan. And it's a choice I've decided to do. It's a choice I started making. I took something that was already kind of naturally happening. I was naturally already paying attention to that area of my life without realizing it. It was a subconscious thing going on. And I gained consciousness of it. Now that I've gained consciousness of it, it's okay. I'm already thinking about these kinds of topics because of the time of year it is. So why not lean into that and use that to start goal planning and sitting down intentionally before the sun enters the next season and saying to myself, how am I feeling about this area of my life right now? And I have a whole process. How am I feeling about this area of my life right now? What kind of divination messages are coming up to say, hey, this kind of stuff is specifically going on? Because I use tarot with it. It becomes a whole thing where I'm using astrology, tarot, and my planner all at once. And those are my favorite things when I do them. If you want to see more about it, you can check out my February predictions video linked up above in the cards. And so that's what I do with the sun. I look at how I'm feeling about that area of my life based on my astrology. And then I divine kind of themes and topics, important messages related. And then I plan. I try and do some goal planning and set intentions of, what do I want to pay attention to? What do I want to be working on? What are things? And what's funny is my second cycle flows right into this. I was trying to come up with a segue, but there was a bunch of interruptions and things. And so I'm just going to go to it. The second pillar of my practice is actually centered around the moon cycle. And it's so astonishing to me to reflect back because I didn't intend for it to be this way. I didn't set out thinking I'm going to build a sun cycle and a moon cycle and blah, 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 blah. I tried in some ways and it didn't quite work, but they ended up developing and evolving in this pretty perfect way in my estimation. And it's super funny because there's this old video I did years ago. I'll link it up above. It's cringy. I don't know if you want to watch it. Don't know what I said. I won't rewatch my videos. But in it, I talked about the realization of all the sun and moon symbolism in my life. There's my moon mirror. There's my sun mirror. And and how it all kind of coalesced to this point. I never realized how much I loved sun and moon imagery together. And then I studied astrology and I found out I was born on a full moon, which the full moon is when the sun is opposite the moon in the sky. And so without even trying to, I've built these pillars, and some of them have been years in the making, that, particularly the moon one, I built these pillars that feed into each other. They communicate, they bounce back and forth with each other, which is very much what happens. There's a back and forth energy in an opposition in astrology. So it's quite fascinating. And this one's built around the moon cycle. The moon cycle in astrology is much faster than the sun cycle. The sun cycle, it takes a year to go all the way around, right? It's 12-month orbit, roughly 30 days each sign. The moon is in each sign for roughly 2.5 days. It's much, 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 much faster. And where the sun talks about, one of the things it talks about is our conscious mind, the moon deals with our emotions, our behaviors, our basic habits and reactions, our deep personal needs, our intuition, and yes, our unconscious. And it's really the words subconscious and unconscious that just it's really, really incredible, because I can actually see how all these pieces that I've been just kind of haphazardly collecting over the years, I can actually see them starting to come together. And I only just put the words to this that helped me realize, wow, look at what I've built. Look at how far I've come. Look at how all these pieces are fitting together. So it's actually really quite beautiful. And when I think about it, it's actually really overwhelming in a really great kind of way. The moon cycle starts with a new moon. And then halfway through, you have a full moon. And then you have the new moon of the next sign, roughly speaking. Let me be clear. It is not always that, it doesn't always line up perfectly. Astrology is not a perfect pattern. It is a flexible pattern. And I do offer astrology resources and newsletters through a Patreon now. And if you are a YouTube channel member here, you can get that for a steep discount. But you can check those out in the description box below. And there's multiple things I offer, such as in-depth newsletters multiple times a month, yada, yada. But for example, let me just give you this example. For example, we don't actually have a new moon in Capricorn this calendar year. We started our year with a new moon in Aquarius, and we have 2 new moons in Aries in a row. We do not actually have a new moon in Capricorn this year, 2023. We have 2 of the Aries ones, but this year in last year, I'm pretty sure we had 2 Capricorn new moons. But we do have 2 Capricorn full moons in this calendar year. So it is not always precise and exact. In a single calendar year, you will not have a full moon and a new moon for every single sign all the time, nice and neatly lined up. The stars, they don't work like that. And this is partly why it makes more sense to me to just, if I'm going to follow the astrology, just follow the astrology. And to go deep with it, because otherwise I just get confused. So technically speaking, there are things like that. So you have to keep that in mind. So for example, in March, there'll be an Aries new moon, and then a Libra full moon, and then an Aries new moon. But the full moon will be in Scorpio. not Libra, the second full moon. So it can get kind of confusing. My moon work has changed a lot. And I've struggled to get my moon work up off the ground, which is weird and hard for me to say because I am a Cancer rising sign. The moon is my chart ruler. I feel I'm supposed to work with the moon, and I want to work with the moon, and I'm a full moon baby. There's lots of things. I've talked about this a lot. I've done several videos about moon work, and I will link one or two of them up in the cards. Moon work has recently shifted, and it shifted when I got my Wisdom of the Divine Shadow and Wisdom of the Divine Feminine Oracle decks. And so now my moon work, my moon cycle begins with the new moon, and it is solidly shadow work based. What I do with the new moon, with the moon cycle as a whole, is I look at the astrology, I look at the house, and I say, what's the shadow that is cast over this house right now? What is the thing that is kind of blocking the work I'm trying to do in this area of my life? That work I talked about in the sun cycle. What's the shadow? And then I pull a card. This month I got this fucker. For the Pisces new moon, this is the shadow that is currently cast over my spiritual work because I'm in my 9th house season with Pisces. This is the shadow that is cast. So I pull that and I do some shadow work reading with my tarot cards. And sometimes I do it a few times. This time I don't really think I need to do it a ton because the message just came out super clear. But I do a shadow work. What I didn't realize was that the shadow, I just can't believe I didn't connect this. The shadow work is like, okay, what is the shadow that's causing a problem that's preventing me from being able to meet my goals I've just set with the sun work in this area of my life? What's the shadow? And then at the full moon of that cycle, I then pull a Wisdom of the Divine Feminine as a counterbalance. Like, okay, here's this shadow. I understand the shadow, and I've sat with this shadow. I didn't try to rush out of it. I've sat with it. I've looked into it. I've thought about it. Okay, now what's the counterbalance? What is the healing force for this shadow? What is something I can do right now? Because it's a very right now thing in my practice. What is the stuff coming up from my subconscious right now? What is the shadow cast upon this area of my life? And then, okay, based on this shadow, what is currently coming up from my subconscious? What do I need to do? Where do I need to work, to heal, to take action, to help dissolve, to help reduce, to help heal this shadow, to help reintegrate, whatever it is. I could probably start talking more about shadow work in specific videos. If you'd like, you just let me know in the comments down below. And then ideally, I'm not quite there yet, but ideally this second half of the cycle, where I'm working with the full moon, there's like a middle action part. Maybe it's not the full moon. Maybe it's like the week. Because and then I like to try and take some time to rest. So I look at it, and I talked about this in a specific moon cycle update video, which I'll link up above. I like to look at it as like the new moon is a time where I'm open, where I can reach and speak to and receive messages from my subconscious, from my guides, from my deities, from divinity, whatever you want to call it. I can receive messages about these. and then I can take some time exploring these messages until I feel like I have a solid understanding of it. And I can do that. And then on the full moon or around the full moon, I think I'm going to be tweaking this. I'm still tweaking. Around the full moon, I pull the counterpoint. What's the healing? So what's the step forward? And then hopefully do some sort of ritual or spell work or something to actually address it. Something to symbolically address this shadow. And then I have just like a rest period where I'm after the full moon. I want to build a practice where I'm grounding, then protecting, then resetting. So that's the second cycle. And then the third pillar is actually also around the moon, but it's not around this world moon cycle. So there's actually 2 moon cycles. And well, there's in astrology, there's the cycle of the planet moving through the sky, which everyone is hitting the same way, not the same way, but which everyone, it's impacting everyone. So everyone is gonna have a full moon everyone just had a new moon in Pisces. Not everyone's gonna feel that the same. There's lots of nuance to it, but everyone, because it wasn't specific to any person. It was specific to the moon. But with astrology, you can find your own specific cycles. And I like to work with my moon cycle. I do not mean my menstrual cycle. I mean the cycle that starts with my moon return. So I've talked about this roughly, but it's crystallized in a way, which is why I wanted to come and make this kind of summary video. So the sun and the moon cycle go together. That's the sun cycle where it is for everybody, and the moon cycle where it is for everybody. Those go together in my practice, and they balance each other. And then I have my moon cycle, which starts every time I have a moon return. A moon return in astrology is when, or any kind of return in astrology, is the first time, I observe it as the first time the planet in question, or the moon or whatever, technically not a planet, but you know, the first time the planetary body in question enters that sign to the last time it leaves that sign, that is your return period. And somewhere in that period of time, there is always an exact conjunction. And that's when the moon moving through the sky lines up with the moon in your birth chart. I always picture it like in that scene in Hercules when the planets will align ever so nicely. One's your moon in your birth chart, and then the other one is the moon moving through the sky, and it lines up. That is a moon return. Now, moon returns, because the moon is only in each sign for 2.5 days, as previously mentioned, this is a much, much quicker thing. So this one, I don't look at the whole period as much when the moon is in Libra. I look at it much more of like, when's the exact moment? And this is when I do self-care based readings, divination work. And this one's really cool. This one I didn't really like. I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't expecting any of this to come together the way it was. And it's really been quite a sequence of random things that made it happen. And I'm trying to think of it now, and it's like I can almost see all the puzzle pieces lining up and just getting added and plugged in, and it's fabulous and incredible. This started because of my absolute love affair with my Songs of the Grandmother Oracle. It is the most gentle and loving thing I own. All my decks, even the Gentle Tarot, which I have multiple copies of this. and the Song of the Grandmothers, I don't use them together. This does a slightly different thing for me than this. Now, I can use them together if I want to, but I don't. This I use, like, if I'm looking to actively heal, that's when I tend to pick this one up because of the guidebook, which I've gone on and on about on this channel. Mari, if you are watching this, I am obsessed. I am obsessed. And Mari has started sharing on her Instagram about, she shared like the first 2 images of the Oracle deck. There's going to be an accompanying Oracle deck, and oh my, I cannot wait. I will, because this and the guidebook, I can't put to words. This doesn't feel the same kind of gentle this is. This, with the Songs of the Grandmothers, like, they're both gentle. With the Songs of the Grandmothers, that's when I just need to be held. This is when I need something that's gentle, but will also kick my ass and tells me how to work, right? So I guess, like, if I need gentle healing energy, but I need to take action on something, that's when I tend to go with the gentle tarot. But this is just about me being held and shown things. It's the grandmothers take my hand and show me what I need to see and tell me what I need to hear. It's not always easy. Sometimes it's really hard, and sometimes I cry. But this is much more about just being held. And I'm so incredibly grateful to have this. I'm so incredibly grateful. So, promo aside, how this kind of came about is a moon return is like an emotional and subconscious realignment. It's an intuitive, emotional, subconscious realignment, which, as I'm sure you can imagine, not always so much fun to experience. It's hard. Often, for me at least, this would not necessarily manifest the same way for everybody. For me, without even trying, no matter what I do, and believe me, there are times when I completely forget about my moon return. And sure enough, I have a cry, a really big, really good cry. And I just feel emotionally overwhelmed and tired. And it makes sense because the moon represents your emotions, your subconscious, your intuition. And so when the moon in the sky lines up with the moon in your chart, it's a realignment. It is a time when you can really just hold yourself and check in with yourself, with your emotions, with your subconscious in general. So where the new moon, I'm specifically looking for shadows. I'm looking for shadows that are blocking me from doing the thing I'm trying to do. With my moon return, with my grandmothers, I'm literally just asking for guidance. And that's literally how I word it. I word it, what grandmother grants me guidance? And that, and then I pull a grandmother card. Here's my current one. Grandmother Primrose, self-trust. Give yourself credit, one choice at a time, repeat. Learn to trust yourself. And this, it's like a guiding star. It's like a guiding light. And again, keep in mind, I'm a Cancer rising. The moon is my chart ruler. That could be why this impacts me so much. Because the moon being my chart ruler means it kind of impacts my whole damn chart. It's the steer of the ship. So I need regular emotional alignments. And I really love the work I do with the grandmothers. So I'll pull a grandmother, and it truly feels like a grandmother is with me, holding me. So I'll pull a grandmother, and I'll pull some cards, usually with my Pacific Northwest Tarot. And I did talk about, I talked about this one more specifically with my Tarot Cycles video, which I'll link up above. But some changes have happened, and it's more so now. What I'm really wanting to talk about here is just the clarity I've gained and how much this is astrology focused and how much this is based on astrology and the crystallization of what it means for me. And based on the grandmothers, I legit have ended up doing some self-care based work. So like I've pulled out a rose quartz and I've had it around me. It changes, that reading in particular changes how I approach myself every cycle. And it's roughly every 28 days. So sometimes you have 2 in a month, which is always intense. But I have these really great pillars. And they're the pillars and at the same time the foundation. They're the pillars that I build the roof, I branch out of, I build off of. So I have my pillar, my sun cycle pillar, where I'm goal setting and planning conscious things I want to work on based on an area of my life, based on where the sun is currently in the sky in astrology. Then there is my moon. There is the world moon pillar, where I'm working with the new moon to discover shadows that are coming up from my subconscious for me to deal with, so that way I can better do my moon or my sun cycle work. And then I have my personal moon cycle work, where I'm just allowing space for whatever needs to come up, whatever else needs to come up. Normally there's ways it's related, it's deeper, it's harder in a lot of ways. That's where the hard stuff tends to come up, and it tends to, like, they all tend to feed into each other. And I do this to just better take care of myself. Because if I don't take better care of myself, I can't do any of the work anyways. So I guess if I had to put it in a visual, maybe it's more like my moon cycle, that's my foundation. And then the sun and the moon are the pillars upon it that I build everything else off of in certain ways. And those are my pillars and foundation of my practice. And truly, like, everything else I do comes off of that. Everything else I do is informed through these lenses, through these cycles that I work in. And yeah, I just thought it would be fun to come and share that all with you. I hope you enjoyed this first Let's Talk About Astrology video, the official one, that is. I did have a couple other astrology videos I remembered that I should have added to the playlist. So you can check out the playlist linked up above in the cards. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up to let me know if you liked it, and subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that bell notification so you can come on back nice and easily. I am planning to talk more about astrology. I am leaning into the astrologer that I am. It is not going to stop my tarot content or my journaling content. So I hope you will stay along for the ride if that is why you joined me here. I'm hoping that through this lens of astrology, I'll be better able to provide content that shows how the three things come together for me. And I'm working on lots of different ideas and resources, more work I can provide you with to help y'all on your journeys. And so if you want to see more of that work, or if you would just like to help support me in the work I do so I can keep doing it, then in the description box below, you will find a few things. One, there is my YouTube channel membership that you can check out. It's really exciting. I really love it. We're talking about astrology. There's an astrology tier. There's a journaling tier. There's a witchy tier. I didn't want to do like just tarot tier, but there is a witchy tier. So there's that you can check out. You can also check out my website. As I mentioned, I am a professional astrologer and tarot reader, and I combine the two and I create really unique readings and services. And there is going to be more astrology stuff coming up on my website, like transit work, like shorter astrology sessions for specific questions. I'm working on several different ideas, so stay tuned, check that out. If you have a specific astrology thing and you're not sure what to do, just send me an email. I'd be happy to work with you. And then also, and the email is in the description box as well. And then also, there's my Patreon. My Patreon is a new thing, and I decided to use the platform of Patreon to dig deeper and explore with writing through the medium of written resources. And I did this for a couple reasons. One, I really want to write more, and I really want to be able to provide more written resources. And I want to provide things like newsletters for astrology, but I am an extra person, and I don't just do astrology a little. I want to do many, many astrology things. And so I need support to be able to do that work. Two, I thought that Patreon was a really great alternative for folks who maybe have been wanting to join the channel to help support. And the thing that's been stopping you is if you don't have the time for the extra lives and videos that you get with the YouTube channel membership. So there is the Patreon. And I do have a specific tier. So if someone is a YouTube channel member and they also want to get the Patreon written resources, they can get that for a reduced cost. So it's more cost effective and accessible to folks. So there's the Patreon there. I do lots of written resources. There's like 3 newsletters a month, including tarot spreads in them. And if you get the extended one, you get... I do even like a lineup based on rising sign. It's very detailed, so you can check those out. And yeah, that's it in the description box. Otherwise, I need to go because my throat hurts and my son is needing some tending to. So I'm going to let you go here. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you'll stick around for more astrology stuff because I'm really excited. And I'd love to share it with you. And don't forget, if you have any astrology things you want to hear me talk about, any kinds of questions, anything, let me know in the comments down below, and I would be happy to do my best to address them. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again really soon. Lots of love. Bye.